In cybersecurity, some of the most common ideas floating around are also the most dangerous. They're not just a little bit wrong, they can be incredibly costly. They give businesses this false sense of security that, honestly, just leaves the door wide open for an attack. So today, we're going to shatter those myths. And to really get why that's so important, let's start with the price tag for getting it wrong.
Take a look at this number. That's not a lottery jackpot. Nope. That is the average cost of a single data breach for a business in the United States. The financial stakes are just staggering, and it really puts a spotlight on how devastating it can be to get security wrong. A number like that is exactly why we just can't afford to operate on assumptions anymore.
I love this quote because it gets right to the heart of the problem. We're not talking about harmless little misunderstandings. These are active threats. Believing in these myths is basically like leaving your front door unlocked and just hoping for the best. So let's start by tackling the most common one of all.
All right, first up is probably the biggest and most dangerous myth out there. It's this idea that if you're not some huge multinational corporation, you're essentially invisible to hackers.
Yeah, this is the one we hear all the time, right? A lot of small and medium-sized business owners think, why would anyone want our data? We're just small fish in a giant pond. While the actual data tells a completely different and much scarier story.
So this slide is a major reality check. Look at that. Attackers aren't just aiming for the giants. A massive 43% of all cyber attacks are aimed squarely at small businesses. So why is that? Well, it's because hackers often see them as easier targets, with fewer resources and less money dedicated to security. You're not just a target, you're actually a prime target. And if an attack does succeed, the results are, well, they're catastrophic. This number right here, 60%, that's the percentage of small businesses that go out of business within just 6 months of a major cyber attack. The financial hit and the damage to their reputation is just too much to come back from. It really proves a critical point. When it comes to cyber attacks, your size offers you zero protection.
Okay, so that leads us right into our second major myth, what I call the fortress fallacy. This is the belief that a simple, single wall of defense is going to be enough to keep the bad guys out. And this brings us to a question we should all be asking ourselves. We tend to think a strong password is like this high-tech vault door, right? But in today's world, with the kinds of threats that are out there, is it really giving you the protection you think it is? This slide really highlights the gap between old thinking and modern reality. Look, a strong password is a great start, but it's just not enough anymore. Passwords can be guessed, they can be phished, they can be stolen in data breaches. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA, gives you that essential second layer of defense. And it is so incredibly effective, in fact, that it blocks nearly all automated attempts to break into your accounts. It's a game changer.
Just relying on one tool, like an antivirus program or a firewall, is a classic mistake. Real effective security is all about layers. Think about it like you're securing a castle. You need a moat, you need high walls, you need guards at the gate, and you need locked doors inside. In the world of cybersecurity, that means combining firewalls with endpoint protection on all your devices, constantly keeping your software updated to patch any holes, filtering out malicious emails, and having systems that can actually detect intruders if they manage to get past that first line of defense. So, we've talked about the size of your business and the technology you use, but what about the biggest security variable of all? People. And this brings us to a crucial and honestly an often overlooked part of the cybersecurity puzzle.
Just take a look at this. According to a major report from Verizon, a staggering 74% of all data breaches involve a human element. Now, this could be someone accidentally clicking on a phishing link, or maybe using a weak password, or it could even be a disgruntled employee who's acting maliciously. The point is, your technology can only do so much. The human factor is the biggest piece of the puzzle. And this right here is why we have to completely shift our thinking. Cybersecurity isn't something you can just hand off to the IT department and then forget about. Every single person in an organization, from the CEO all the way down to the newest intern, plays a role in protecting data. It is a shared responsibility, period. So how do you do it? How do you turn what could be your biggest liability into your strongest line of defense? Well, you do it by building a human firewall. This means you got to invest in regular, ongoing training to help your employees spot threats. It means putting strong access controls in place so people can only get to the data they absolutely need for their job. And maybe most importantly, it means creating a company-wide culture where security is truly everyone's top priority. And all of this leads us to our final and I think most important point.
To be truly secure, we have to stop thinking about cybersecurity as just some task to be completed and start treating it as a core part of our organization's culture.
The difference in mindset here is like night and day. The checkbox approach is totally reactive. It's all about doing the bare minimum just to meet some compliance rules. It treats security like a project with a start date and an end date. But the culture approach, that's proactive. It's continuous. It's not about just trying to avoid fines. It's about building genuine resilience and weaving security into every single decision the business makes.
And so we're going to end with this question for you to think about. When you think about your organization's security, is it just a box to be ticked, a task to be checked off a list, or is it a living, breathing part of your culture? The answer to that question could be the difference between staying secure and becoming just another statistic.